As everyone knows, Aiden, the president of Aiden Group, never indulge in sensual pleasure and never allow any relationship to last for more than 3 months. But I was an exception and stayed with him for 5 years. His brothers joked that he would propose to me someday. Aiden calmly replied, "The Aiden family is not a place where the unpresentable woman can cling to." But a few years later, he came all the way to my hometown, knelt on one knee, and begged me, a woman who was not presentable, to marry him. My husband smiled and stepped in front of me. "Sorry, bro, my wife doesn't take a second husband." Standing in the entrance of the private room and don't go in. Aiden sent me a message asking me to pick him up because he have been drinking and couldn't drive. "Aiden, when are you going to propose to Scarlett? It's been 5 years, it's time to settle down." After hearing this, I stand there for some unknown reason, not knowing what I am waiting for. I heard the man's calm voice. "The Aiden family is not a place where the unpresentable woman can cling to." My heart sinks. A few minutes later, I walk in, pretending not to be aware of the sympathetic or contemptuous looks from the crowd, and I wave goodbye to them with Aiden. After getting in the car, Aiden presses his forehead, but I don't go up to him and massage him to relieve his discomfort as usual. He raises his head in surprise, with a hint of confusion in his eyes. "What's wrong?" He was the one who spoke contemptuously to me just now, and he is also the one with a confused look on his face now. I have no intention of analyzing the duplicity of those in power. My eyes accidentally pass over his empty knuckles, and I shake my head. "Nothing, I just worked overtime till late today, and I'm a little tired." Having said this, Aiden closes his eyes and rests. We don't talk any more words then, and silence flows in the air. When I return to the room, a pair of strong arms suddenly wrap around me. The cold scent of rime fills my nose, a cold and wet kiss move on the back of my neck, and my hair is gently lifted up, spreading waves of itchiness. The night is cool and serene, akin to the gentle touch of water, and I am absent-mindedly counting the swaying shadows of the trees outside the window. The tingling sensation in my earlobe brings me back to reality. The deep and mellow voice is close to my ear, and the fierce impact brings an uncontrollable tremor. "What are you thinking about? Do you want to be distracted at this time?" I am stunned for a moment, then I put my hand on his shoulder, close my eyes, and let myself sink into desire with him. I am not surprised to see the news of Aiden's engagement to Emma, the daughter of a jewelry tycoon, making headlines. Even though this man was lying in the same bed with me last night, whispering sweet words to me. But I don't believe it. I know him too well, I know his choice. An ordinary woman with no background, and a rich lady who can help his career and take the Aiden Group to the next level. We all know his answer. He is rational and calm enough. But he forgets that I am also such a person. Looking at the pigeon egg-sized engagement diamond rings on their hands on the news photos, I take off the plain ring on my hand. They are bought from the stalls for fun when we first got together. I pull it out violently and throw it into the trash can. I rub my fingers. It hurts so much. The mobile phone is still pushing related news, and some people are gathered in the tea room to discuss the marriage between the president and Emma. It turns out that marrying into a wealthy family and ascending social classes is just a lie told to children in fairy tales. The truth is that princes and princesses always get married. Don't even think about it. This kind of good thing will never happen to us. Why don't you join me in supporting the boss and Emma? A handsome man and a beautiful woman, what a perfect match. But doesn't President have a girlfriend? I saw him holding a lunchbox earlier. Maybe they broke up? But it's also possible that the woman was Emma, and they just made it official now. They are such a perfect match, so sweet. Making lunchboxes doesn't seem like something a young lady would do. Maybe it's just the nanny of Mr. Liu's family who does it. Their voices seems close yet far away through a wooden board, until the boiling tea overflows and I subconsciously let go of my hand. Boom! I pick up the teacup just as they open the door. They look at me awkwardly. Director Scarlett. I smile and stand up. It's my fault for being so careless. Are you here to pour water? Please wait for me to deal with it. I'll be done soon. I am a person who keeps my private life and work very separate. Aiden also doesn't want his personal affairs to be discussed by his employees. It is better to have less trouble than more, so we tacitly keep the matter secret. 5 years have passed, and no one knows that Mr. Liu and the planning director are having an affair. Even at this time, I am just a nanny behind the scenes, and my name is not worthy of appearing together with his. The gap between us is like an unbridgeable chasm. As they say, princes only marry princesses. Fairy tales are just stories to entertain children. I am a purebred ugly duckling and will never transform into a swan. I hand in my resignation letter. The resignation letter was written a long time ago, and I had been waiting for this day. I smiled helplessly, a smile dominated by reason, an emotion that never allows me to think by chance that I would be the exception. I picked up my phone, looked at the news of their engagement pushed on major platforms, and put it down again. It's better not to bother them. They have no shortage of blessings, and it would seem hypocritical to express happiness after breaking up. I remember the first day I went to work at Liu's, Secretary Zhang took me to the top floor. He was sitting at his desk, flipping through documents in his hands. He had slender bones and a tight suit that outlined his tight features. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, but the seriousness had not yet faded from his eyes. His gold-rimmed glasses sparkled in the sunlight. And he looked up, his eyes locked on me. Joan? Let's make a deal, 1 million, and we'll be together. It's a very cliché plot, and what's even more cliché is that I was blinded by the money and agreed to it. Rumor has it that none of his past relationships lasted more than 3 months. Let's talk about it. 1 million in 3 months. I can't even think about it because I'm used to being poor. I never thought I was special. 3 months, very short. Like a dream. However, 3 months later, the relationship did not fail as I expected. The day I left, I cooked a bowl of noodles and left his house. I have very little stuff, so little that I can just grab a bag and leave at any time. I know that I cannot be greedy and cannot desire things that do not belong to me. Just like a monkey trying to climb up to the noble bright moon, but eventually drowning in a pool of autumn water. No good end. However, late at night, someone knocked on the door of the rental house. I was trembling with all kinds of suspicions, but a message popped up on my phone. It's me, don't be afraid. I opened the door and saw a pair of dark eyes with a light that I couldn't understand. I didn't say anything, and neither did he. He lowered his head and I closed my eyes hastily. A restrained but passionate kiss fell on my brow. His hands were shaking, and that emotion seemed to spread to his heart. The thick eyelashes trembled nervously and were suddenly kissed. My heart seemed to have settled down. We are back to where we were before. I get up early for work and occasionally make him a lunchbox. We also go to the cinema to watch a movie like Ordinary Couples, grab a doll on the first floor of the shopping mall, and curl up on the sofa on rainy days to watch Animal World and make 2 cups of coffee, the light coffee aroma permeating my clothes. No one mentioned the previous transaction. It's just that he would take the initiative to give me 1 million every 3 months. I didn't dare ask him what he meant, as I couldn't figure out what he meant. What's wrong with getting 1 million for free? There's no need to be stingy with money. Until she was leaning against him in soft, skin-friendly lambskin pajamas, the TV was playing a scene of a cheetah leaping and catching an elk, and the white mist on the coffee cup was shrouding his eyebrows. I heard the sound of my heart beating. 5 years have passed. I grew from a young girl who had just graduated to an independent planning director, and he was still himself, the vigorous and decisive Mr. Liu, the public sweetheart who was listed on the Forbes list. He is also my unreachable pillow partner. Some things cannot be achieved by hard work, and more often than not, there are regrets that cannot be filled, so you have to choose to accept them. I looked at our dialogue box, still stuck on the moment he asked me to pick him up last night. No explanation. Come to think of it, what right do I have to ask him to explain? He didn't promise me anything, did he? After thinking about it, I decided to send a message to Aiden. Let's separate. In a trance, I looked out the window and suddenly noticed a streak of golden light spreading across the horizon. It's daybreak. When I woke up, it was already evening. My phone pushed many posts about the president of Aiden Group and his fiancée visiting a luxury house, and below were enthusiastic comments from netizens. Are you ready to buy a wedding house? The CEO is so proactive. Dream of a grand wedding. 2 babies in 3 years. I saw them having dinner at the Times building half a month ago. It turns out that sweet love affairs are only enjoyed by rich people. I was stunned. It turns out they have been together half a month ago? I felt dizzy and vomited all over the place, and was overwhelmed by a strong sense of self-loathing. My self-esteem seemed to be shattered, and the remaining fragments mocked my arrogance. What am I in his eyes? I sat on the ground, unable to come back to my senses for a long time. The next day, I met Aiden when I went to the company to hand over my work. He seemed to be explaining to me. I was too busy yesterday and didn't see the message. Yes, he was busy shopping for a wedding house with his lover, so how could he have the time to care about an insignificant person? I smiled slightly. Mr. Liu, you are too polite. It's my fault. I shouldn't have disturbed you during your private time. You are angry. Aiden looked at me with a firm tone. I reminded him. Mr. Liu, you already have a fiancée. Aiden showed no expression, as if this was not enough reason to reject him. I asked him back. So do you need to ask about my mood? He frowned and didn't answer. Do you want to break up with me? I stated a fact. Mr. Liu, even if I didn't say it, you would have mentioned it, right? It is the nature of a businessman to weigh the pros and cons. Our relationship is a time bomb that threatens their originally stable marriage. He will not keep me under his nose any longer. He was silent, and I knew I had guessed it right. Aiden's brows were still furrowed, as if he was thinking about something. The sound of knuckles hitting the tabletop sounded regularly, and then suddenly there was a break. What if I told you to stay? There was a stabbing pain in my heart, as if thousands of silver needles were piercing my heart. There was a buzzing in my ears, and my throat suddenly felt so dry that I couldn't make any sound. Who does he take me for? Why do you think I would be willing to follow him without any status? I laughed at myself, feeling sorry for myself. I am just like any other person. I am not worthy of having anything to do with you anymore. He was stunned for a moment, his expression a little surprised, his tone still deep. You heard it. I didn't respond. It was not comfortable to tear off the disguise and expose the bloody wounds. I tried my best to get here, but I was reduced to my original form in front of him. He seemed to be explaining. We are just a business marriage. I looked at him calmly. Mr. Liu, you don't need to explain to me. In the face of facts, there is no room for explanation. Just as he couldn't deny that he and Emma were indeed engaged. In the future, they will get married, have children, enjoy their grandchildren, and spend their lives together. He will be a qualified husband and will learn to be a less serious father. They have common topics, and there may be a lot of romance in life, watching the aurora together all night, traveling along the equator, and waking up slowly in the first rays of sunlight in the early morning. But those have nothing to do with me. He understood what I meant, but his expression didn't show. Did I not give enough? Bitterness rose up in his throat. He didn't understand. I shook my head. It's not about the money. He didn't say anything and seemed to be still thinking about something. I didn't stop and bowed to him. I wish you and Emma a long and happy marriage." I ignored his reaction and turned away. This is probably the last time we see each other. The two straight lines intersect briefly and then become parallel. This is our trajectory, the original trajectory. When did you plan to leave? About 2 years ago, Aiden introduced me to his friends in his circle. They all brought playmates, and Aiden brought me. Those little girls, wearing sexy or revealing clothes, sitting astride the legs of men in suits and TIs. It was a lively and decadent scene, but I felt like I was in an icy cave. I seemed to be no different from them. I was just a plaything sitting next to Aiden. His friends just glanced at me and never looked at me again. They looked down on me. Aiden would understand, but he still brought me here. I felt cold all over, as if cold air was seeping through the cracks in my bones. He was hitting me. During the meal, I went to the bathroom, and when I came out there was another person. She was a rich girl who sat below Aiden, and her every move was elegant. She said bluntly, "You are the first woman who has stayed with him for so long. I am very curious about you." By then, I had been promoted 3 times in the workplace and was no longer the girl who foolishly revealed her cards. I waited calmly for her to reveal her intentions. "You look a lot like him." She didn't embarrass me, she just asked me, "Have you thought about what to do in the future?" Aiden is 31 years old. He will get married after a few more years of playing around. What will you do then? His wife may also be from a wealthy family, or she may be a lady from a famous family, or of course she may be a princess from a foreign royal family. But it couldn't be me. I understand what she meant by not fully expressed. I never had the delusion that I would be the one walking down the aisle with him, and I also knew clearly that sooner or later there would be a day when I would leave. I smiled and answered her, which was also an answer to myself. I will leave and return to my own world. She also smiled and looked at me meaningfully. No wonder Aiden likes you. And I just smiled politely. I would prepare sobering soup in advance for him when he came back from social events, and I would prepare a delicious breakfast for him. He had a bad stomach, so I always got up early to cook pumpkin porridge for him. After being together for several years, I was also the one who bought and took care of his clothes. But if you say that Aiden likes me, I can't tell. He is very generous. He buys gifts for my birthday every year in advance and never misses Valentine's Day and Chinese Valentine's Day. He takes me on trips on weekends. When I am sick at home, he will order meals for me and prepare clean clothes. Apart from being a little strong in bed, there is nothing special about him. But this is at most a reward for the pet, it is not love. We didn't communicate much. He liked quietness and I didn't like to talk either, and I didn't dare to speak. He spoke first and then I dared to continue. I would observe his expression, trying to figure out the reasons behind every frown and pursed lip. Sometimes I laugh at myself. Why does it feel like going to work? It's just like going to work. Read the leader's eyes, understand the leader's thoughts, and solve problems for the leader. I implement this approach at home. However, he enjoyed it and didn't find any problem. He didn't notice that I was walking on thin ice and was very cautious. 5 years have passed, and I am still afraid when I see him. Habitually submit to the power of those in a higher position. In his eyes, every day I walk on the boundary line in fear and dare not cross the line. I was worried that he would misunderstand me as someone who was trying to cling to fame and fortune. But I was brought here today, and it was like a loud slap in the face, shattering my hopeful thoughts. There's no difference. At least in his opinion, there was no difference. He has always been the leader of this relationship. I always thought that as long as I didn't overstep the line, I could be on an equal footing in this relationship by taking the money with one hand and doing the work with the other. But there is no point. Because the key is not what I do, what matters is what he thinks. He was the decision maker from beginning to end. He is downwardly compatible with me, condescending and unattainable. That is a overlooking posture. This is a deformed relationship. It is even more ridiculous to pursue equality in a relationship that starts with inequality. Just like that time when I was burnt out and I acted like a spoiled child to him, asking him to cook a bowl of pumpkin porridge for me. He ordered a takeaway from the porridge shop and coaxed me into saying that he cooked it. I drank it all with a smile, pretending not to know, and praised the porridge he cooked for being delicious. In fact, I was already sober at that time, but I was unwilling to face the requests I made when I was confused. I also understand his approach. He simply felt that it wasn't worth it. After all, I wasn't a very important person and I could just endure the illness and it would pass. I know I have no right to judge his actions, but the bitterness still eats away at my heart. There are many things like this, and each one reminds me that I must not be tempted. He has a lot, but I only have myself. If I give my heart away, I will have nothing. I had expected Aiden to get engaged. I had planned it long ago and was waiting for this day to come. After doing so much mental preparation, when this day finally came, I was not as sad as I had expected. Emma asked me out for coffee, but I didn't think it was necessary for us to meet. But they blocked me downstairs of the company. Sitting down in the cafe, Emma observed me with interest. Miss Kiao is a very capable lady. I thanked her with a smile and gave her a few compliments. After the greetings, she asked me directly. I heard that Miss Kiao resigned. Do you plan to continue working in Shanghai? I told the truth. The pace of life in Shanghai is too fast. I can't adapt to it. I plan to go back to my hometown later. The other party breathed a barely perceptible sigh of relief, and there was actually a hint of smile in his eyes when he looked at me. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. I listened to the real-time playback of their conversation on the phone left in the booth bag. I had noticed a long time ago that the guests at the table diagonally behind me were Aiden's cousin. He had attended the banquet twice, so he looked quite familiar. After a while of rustling, a male voice came. How could Aiden be fascinated by such a person? Everything on his body is not as valuable as one of your earrings. I'm just playing around. I don't know what you're worried about. After all, I've been with Brother Yan for 5 years, and I'm curious about her abilities. The man sighed. Miss, you are really worrying about nothing. She has only been with Aiden for 5 years, and you have been married into the Liu family for more than 5 years. Emma smiled. You are right, it's just a pastime. I was worrying too much. The man comforted her. We are in this circle for fun. Who is not unfaithful? Who really brought someone home? Didn't they settle down after marriage? Aiden is not someone who can't tell the difference between the important and the unimportant, don't worry. Brother Yan, I feel relieved. After meeting her today, I feel that Miss Kiao is also sensible and capable. If it weren't for this incident, I might have helped my brother find a girl. His company happens to be short of people. The male voice was still contemptuous. You are still too naive. I have seen many women like this. You are subdued by a trick of retreating to advance? They are trying their best to squeeze into this circle. I don't believe she is willing to give up such wealth. Emma didn't respond because I had already walked over. I left for a moment on the pretext of having something to do, picked up my bag, and gave her a friendly smile. Thank you for the treat. I paused as I passed the booth at the back and said in a low voice that he was sure to hear. People who are expelled from the circle are much more pitiful than people like me who can't squeeze in. After saying that, I walked away. I knew without even thinking that the other person's face turned black. He got addicted to gambling a few years ago and couldn't pay back the money he borrowed. His parents didn't care and he was marginalized by his social circle. I don't know where he got the confidence to make a difference. But his thoughts were probably the same as those of other people in the circle. They used to call me sister-in-law as a joke, but after Aiden got engaged, most of them deleted me. they assumed that marriage was the next stage of development. Perhaps they had speculated in the past whether I would be the exception, but with Aiden's words, this speculation was dispelled. We are not people of the same world. They appear gentlemanly and polite, but their inherent pride and superiority are always present. Birds of a feather flock together, and Aiden might be one of them. Maybe he also thought that letting me stay with him was already a great favor, and I should be content. But my education and my understanding tell me that this is not the case. I have the right to choose the life I love, and I don't have to stay in someone else's world and be a vassal who is looked down upon. There is no need to force yourself to fit in if you are in different circles. I boarded the plane back to my hometown. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window at the airport, I looked at the birds circling in the blue sky. The birds flying outside also have to return to their own world. I had a dream about my high school days. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't too good either. After all, I had seen the light of hope when I was in high school, and I was one step closer to a new starting point in my dream life. But what followed was that I was kicked out of the house and I couldn't afford a penny. The feudal idea of favoring boys over girls is deeply rooted in the village. I have been called a money loser since I was a child. Because my parents couldn't get pregnant, I was also given the title of a disaster star. The villagers openly or covertly mocked my mother as a hen that couldn't lay eggs, and occasionally they said a few words of sympathy for me just to find ways to sting my mother. I got beaten for this many times. I learned how to cut grass and make fire, and to cook on a stool. I tried to be a sensible child, but my parents still beat and scolded me, saying that I was causing them to have no descendants and that I had let down their ancestors. When I was 9 years old, I was molested by the hooligans in the village. They just said lightly, "It's because you are too ostentatious, otherwise why would he do that to you? Next time he plays with you, don't refuse him. Let him marry you and give us some betrothal money to repay us. Don't let us suffer a loss." I was awakened in the middle of the night by the greasy and disgusting smile of the man in my dream. I had a high fever during the day. My teacher carried me to the clinic, and the doctor said I almost died of fever. At that time, my parents were busy looking for the secret recipe for giving birth to a boy. When I was in middle school, my younger brother was born. He was conceived through in vitro fertilization in a big city. My mother suffered a lot and the family savings were emptied. But they were very happy. I had never seen them smile so brightly in all these years. My dad's row of black teeth were all exposed. They made me drop out of school and work. "I've raised you for so many years, it's time for you to repay your family." I disagreed, and they called me an ungrateful person and told me to get out of the house. My mother was very proud after giving birth to my younger brother, and the people in the village helped her to scold me, saying that I was a heartless and money loser. It was natural for a sister to help her younger brother, but I was selfish and didn't want to do it. But my brother and I are both human beings, why should I deserve to be sacrificed? No one told me the answer. So after being beaten black and blue again, I never went back. My teachers are all angels. My class teacher knew my family situation and understood my difficulties, so they worked together to raise money for my accommodation. But I can't get something for nothing. So I went to school during the day and tutored their children and checked their homework at night, and also filled in my own gaps. My life was full and I didn't think about my family. I'm not the kind of person who would be held hostage by family ties. On the contrary, I realized very early on that my parents did not love me. Perhaps due to family reasons, I look at things with an exceptional calmness and am less likely to get emotionally involved. It is also very easy to withdraw. But Aiden was an accident. Aiden thought that we first met on the rooftop, but that was not the first time I met him. I first met him in my high school. At that time, the Aiden Group established a new foundation, which invested funds specifically in education and rewarded students with outstanding academic performance. At that time, I had already thought about giving up studying. The teachers had helped me for so long, and I didn't dare to accept their kindness as I was afraid I could never repay them. But this batch of educational funds can alleviate my predicament. The first prize money was generous enough for me to get through the remaining year and a half of high school life, and if I spent frugally, I would still have some left over. This means that I can rely on my own abilities, without relying on anyone else, to reach the place of my dreams. My eyes were blazing with anger and I studied almost to death, sleeping later than the stars and waking up earlier than the chickens. When I felt sleepy, I would pour cold water on myself and pinch my arms. Life will not let down the brave. I won the first place in the final exam with bruises all over my body. The award ceremony was held in the school lobby. A young man in a suit and tie was speaking on the stage. He had cold eyes and a dignified demeanor. His exquisite brooch was shining with silver light, and he seemed like two different worlds compared to the bright red background around him. Like a cedar tree standing alone among the mountains. That was the first time I saw him. Just one glance amazed me for many years to come. I heard from the man in the front seat that he was from Shanghai, which is a big city, and he was a big boss with a lot of money. I saw him up close while I was waiting in the wings. He wore gold-rimmed glasses, had a calm and composed demeanor, had a fair complexion that looked a little childish, and had the elegance and nobility of a young man. But he just glanced at the people on the stage, and he was angry without even being intimidating. The business giant is beginning to take shape. It's only natural to like him. Unknown feelings flow in my heart. Like a silk thread connecting the chasm, it leads me to see the light. He put the bouquet and the prize money in my hands. I forgot to breathe as the fresh air filled my nose. I took them with trembling hands and bowed. There was a bright light behind him, and I was shrouded in shadow. There was a clear boundary between light and shadow between us, as if foreshadowing something. He was glamorous and I was in the mud. To take the photo, I suppressed my pounding heart and forced a smile for the camera. After getting the photo, I smiled happily, and the corners of his mouth were slightly curved, showing a businesslike attitude. I wrapped our photo in several layers of bags and put it in the inner layer of my school bag. Sometimes I would think about it when I was taking a nap on my desk. Where is Hootie? What is the place like to raise him? Is it big? Are the people there rich? If I go there, can I meet him? If you have the chance, be sure to go and see it. So in the blink of an eye, I decided where I would work after graduation. In the days that followed, I worked hard to prepare for the college entrance examination. A fortress watered with sweat is the most solid and reliable backing. When I am so tired that I can't breathe, I will take out the photo that is pressed inside my school bag and look at it. How to fill the huge gap? I thought naively at that time. I will try my best to cross the mountains and reach you. After graduation, I got my dream and entered Lu Corporation with my excellent resume. He didn't recognize me, which was normal. I was just a passerby to him. I was surprised that he proposed the deal, but deep down I felt a secret joy, like an unexpected drop of syrup, so sweet that it was sickening. He has no idea how much the person in front of him has paid to stand in front of him. I woke up to the sound of the flight attendant reminding me to put away the small table, and a tear flashed across the corner of my eye. I thought again of the monkey trying to reach the moon. After all, it's just an illusion, a dream. I bought a house in Jiking, which is a small county town with low housing prices and low consumption. My previous 7-figure annual salary was enough to support me here. I went to see my high school teacher, and the familiar smile was still as bright as ever. Kiao Pan, long time no see. I smiled and changed her name. Teacher Liu, I changed my name. I am now Kiao An. The teacher smiled knowingly. Okay, Kiao An. My parents hoped for me to be a boy to carry on the family line. Later, I named myself Kiao An. Peace and success are my blessings to myself. During the break, several teachers came over and asked me about my recent situation with concern. I answered them one by one, and their eyes were filled with soft light. They really want me to be well. Fortunately, I still have the confidence to stand in front of them. After returning home, I completely let myself go. I could sleep as late as I wanted, eat or not, turn on the air conditioner, curl up in bed, and watch my favorite variety shows. It is completely different from the highly stressful and fast-paced life in the past. But I adapted well. I glanced at the shelf. The snacks are out, I have to go restock. I carried my cell phone and bags to the supermarket downstairs, and before I knew it, the bags were full. I was about to grab another bag of chips and leave, and reached out to grab the bag of cucumber-flavored chips on the inside of the shelf, but a shadow suddenly fell beside me. A pair of slender, white hands grabbed the bag of potato chips. I was stunned and watched it being taken away. When I turned around, I saw a boy in a beige hooded sweatshirt holding a bag of potato chips. He looked at me and then at the chips in his hand. "Do you want to eat?" I didn't expect him to ask me that. I was stunned. Of course I want to eat it, otherwise I wouldn't come to get it. But they have all been taken by others, so answering like this would make me seem very greedy. So I said, "Whoever gets it first gets it." The boy widened his eyes, showing a helpless expression, and said with a smile, "If you like it, just say so." He stuffed the chips into my bag, and before I could refuse, I watched him stride out of the supermarket. Coming to the supermarket just for this bag of chips? I was confused and dragged my bag to check out. When I took my things out, an ID card fell out. "Yuan Luo?" The clean and hearty smile looks familiar to me. Eh? It belonged to that boy just now. How did it fall here? After I paid the bill, I took my ID card to the front desk to report it lost. Not long after I returned home, WeChat sent me a friend verification message. "Hello, I'm Yuan Luo. Thank you for picking up my ID card." I thought about it and guessed that he added the phone number I left at the front desk. "It's okay, it's just a small favor, and thank you for giving me the potato chips." The other party replied immediately. "It's just a small matter. You really helped me a lot. I thought I had to go back to do it again. Fortunately, you are here. I don't know how to thank you. Are you free? I'll treat you to a meal. I appreciate it. See you again if we're lucky." A laughing cat emoji popped up on the other side, saying cutely, "Okay." Young people are really energetic. I raised my eyebrows and continued to watch my animal world. Later, I often ran into Yuan Luo. It turned out that we were neighbors in the same building. When he heard that I was too lazy to eat breakfast, he would hang breakfast on my door every day when he came back from his morning run. After a while, we became familiar with each other. But since we were not related, I was too embarrassed to accept his kindness and politely declined. It's too much trouble. If you hurt your stomach because you skip breakfast, that would be a problem. I sent him a raid envelope and said, "Thank you, I'll buy you 10 bags of potato chips." When I take an evening walk, he would appear beside me, walk around the lake with me and chat casually. The straightforwardness in his eyes was too much for me to handle, and I gradually distanced myself from him. But Yuan Luo stopped me downstairs. "Sister, have you been avoiding me lately?" He blinked his round eyes and looked at me intently, with a look of grievance in his eyes that made it hard to refuse him. But I was hard-hearted. You can understand it this way. I just ended a relationship and I don't have any other plans for the time being. It is irresponsible to each other to rush into a new relationship without moving on from the past. But he was not frustrated. His eyes were shining and he even smiled after listening to what I said. "Then I'll come out with you." I was stunned. Is there such a saying? Don't people plan to stand up after they fall down once? I touched my nose, not knowing how to answer. He smiled softly. "But if you don't want to stand up, I'll lie down with you, so you don't have to worry about being bored." I looked up suddenly and saw him looking down at me with sincerity in his eyes. He was wearing a beige coat today, which was furry and looked very warm, just like how he made me feel. Feel sorry. But because I know he is a good person, I should not delay him. He picked up the fallen leaves on my shoulders and laughed. What's there to be sorry about? He looked down at me with inexplicable emotions in his eyes and sighed. I really wish you could be a little more selfish. Forehead? He shook his head. It's okay, you can do whatever you want, but I won't give up. The afterglow of the setting sun outlined his perfect jawline, and the fiery clouds clustered in the sky, reflecting his extremely determined bright eyes. When I got home, I sat for a long time. Sit until the stars dot the night sky and the bright moon hangs high in the sky. The cell phone beeped. It was a former colleague. Director Scarlett, how are you doing lately? I'm fine, resting at home. Is there anything wrong? No, I've been working overtime lately, and I remembered the legend of how we could create a miracle over a cup of coffee. Take care of yourself. You can't finish all the overtime. A few minutes later, the other party asked again. Director Scarlett, do you know President Liu? I blinked in confusion. What did that mean? As a senior executive of the company, how could I not know Aiden? The other party immediately sent a message. I don't mean anything else, I'm just asking. Yes, I used to report my work to Mr. Liu. I asked again. What happened? Why do you ask this? I also heard it from others. It was said that during a high-level meeting, Mr. Liu projected your photo on the screen, and it was a daily photo. Then some people rumored that you two were dating in private, but it seemed that you didn't have much in common, so now everyone is speculating that Mr. Liu has a crush on you. I just wanted to gossip a little. I was stunned when I saw this news. Aiden and his fiancée shopping together has been a hot search for a few days, and it is still on the list.